Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health is a not-for-profit group of hospitals and medical clinics caring for surrounding communities. Their nurses, physicians, and staff are nationally recognized for their remarkable devotion to patient care. And by Sonoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
You know, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who does not believe that education should be a top priority, from a public policy point of view to a stronger social network to a higher standard of living and better economies. There are healthy debates on how to best expand and develop curriculum and syllabus for sure, and everyone has an idea. But there are very few people that put their money where their mouth is. On this CBR Executive Profile, Lowcountry businesswoman and former educator Anita Zucker talks education and economic development.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte, enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's responsible for rising healthcare costs. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded November 10th, 2011. On this week's program, an executive profile featuring Anita Zucker, Chair and CEO of the InterTech Group. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Anita, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Chris.
And I know you mean that sincerely. Many, many years ago, and I know you remember this, we talked about it before the program, it was an honor to have your late husband, Jerry, on this program. He was, you know, to have a chief executive of a company at the time, Polymer Group, and now InterTech that you chair, but to have a CEO like that so excited about one of the product lines, it was refreshing. He was almost like a kid with a toy and trying to show us how it worked and why it was so great. I'll never forget those days. But
you captured him very well.
Thank you. Well, I could see why you were so crazy about him. We all liked him. Let's start with education. Anita, you used to be a teacher. You used to be, you know, kind of where the rubber meets the road in the process, you know, down there with the kids and the parents. Let's start with you are certainly a big supporter and a proponent of education. Are folks like you, who not just write checks, but are clearly vocal about education, do you feel like you're making the inroads to keep some of the cuts from state budgets hurting the process and hurting the kids?
I would say yes. I work on this every day, and I have served the past 6 years in Columbia on the Education and Economic Development Act Coordinating Council. That was legislation that was enacted in 2005, and that has allowed us to develop majors based on the clusters, the federal clusters that exist. And we've developed majors, and every child starting at the 8th grade now has an individualized graduation plan. So our kids in our public schools are now having an opportunity to do strategic planning for their lives. They can think through, what do I want to do in the future? What am I going to do when I get to the 9th grade? What do I want to be thinking about? And they can change along the way. They're not stuck in one place. They take their core courses and they take a major, and it might be healthcare, which is critical today. Might be engineering, which is very critical in South Carolina right now because that's an area that's growing. STEM is critical, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we're pushing our kids in those directions that are really going to make them successful individuals, that also allows them to think about, do I want to go to college? Should it be a 2-year or a 4-year? Or do I really just need to get a job when I graduate? In my opinion and from my perspective, I want kids going on to some type of higher education. I think it's critical.
How do you not get discouraged from that? How do you make sure that you always carry the flag, and even in the face of what the State House in Columbia says about education, where they need to cut, what Republicans, Democrats, how they feel differently? How do you not get discouraged and continue to press on?
I press on because I go in the schools. I go and meet with kids. I go and speak with kids. When you see the kids and you see what some of the teachers are doing with students, you can't be depressed. You have to feel good because there are these incredible pockets of excellence. We have some incredibly bright young people, but they have to be given the opportunity. They have to be shown what's out there for them. And there's so many kids who are not exposed to the world. And so we have to bring the world to them. And we have to expose our young people to what exists out in the world so that they can have dreams. They have to have hopes and dreams about what they can become. And so I like to go and teach them and take ideas to them. And so I'm still teaching. I teach all the time, and I learn every day. And I think that's really important.
When you were a teacher, and reflect back on this for me if you can, and you hear the same debates we all hear in Charleston County or in Richland County or up in the Triangle in Wake County or Mecklenburg County, it seems almost that school boards are dysfunctional, can't even get along, and the teachers are held to a standard that sometimes seems unfair. And then you have those who are more fiscally minded said, absolutely, the teacher needs to be on the dime and on the line. If the student outcomes aren't X, then the teacher either doesn't get paid or no tenure, loses the job at some point. How do you come down on a dialogue like that?
I have a hard time with a lot of that type of dialogue. However, I will tell you that I expect excellence in our teachers. I don't know that we want to use incentive pay necessarily, but we really need to make certain that we're providing the right professional development. If we're not providing the right coursework and training our teachers appropriately, then how can we have the expectations that some of us have?
Do they feel, I'm sorry to interrupt you, do they feel like they're kind of hanging out there without development work?
I think they are at times. I think right now, having Boeing come into the state of South Carolina, they've served as a tremendous catalyst. They just gave us a grant in Charleston for our Education Foundation.
Oh, this is Boeing?
Boeing did, $181,000. It was just announced this week. And it's really all about STEM and promoting STEM. And we do career academies in our Education Foundation that's an arm of our Chamber of Commerce. We work with the schools, and we're working on having academies that are accredited nationally. So they're really, really valuable and giving kids incredible skills that they can take to the workplace after college. Okay, some could perhaps go directly into the workplace, but I still think certification of some sort at the 2-year level in our technical colleges is a necessity. It's a necessity to help kids have better power to earn, better wages in their lives. And there's a great chart that the Bureau of Labor and Statistics puts out, and it shows what happens to students as they continue up the education continuum. It shows the unemployment rates if you don't have a high school degree and how high they are. It's 14.9% in 2010 without a degree. And the rate diminishes and becomes less and less with the higher levels of education one achieves. And then with the earning power, the same thing happens. Of course, the less education you have, the less you're likely to earn in your lifetime. And so we really need to show that and teach that to young people to give them the ideas that if I do move ahead and I achieve, they have to achieve, then I can move forward. But in order to get our kids educated in STEM area in particular, science, technology, engineering, and math, which can help a child and a young person in any career, we have to make sure the teachers are trained to deliver that type of education. So again, to me, teacher quality is at the heart of what goes on. I know I was constantly taking professional development courses. It was really important to improve what I knew. But today, the world's changing very, very rapidly, so we have to change our teachers as well and make sure that they are keeping up with the changes that are happening in the world and in industry. Industry's changing very, very fast.
Anita, do you get a sense that most teachers, maybe most of the good teachers that we do want on, will buy into the fact that there has to be some type of pay incentive or pay for performance? It's not the right way to say it because it's got such a bad connotation. But the teachers have to have equity in the process of the children that achieve. Wouldn't you guess that most teachers say, yeah, absolutely, we need to be held accountable on some point?
Well, they have to be held accountable.
And they want to be, don't they?
They do. And sometimes I almost think we ought to be looking at our salaries that we're paying our teachers, because if we really respect the teacher who's spending so much time with children and developing these kids along the way, maybe we need to start with their salaries in particular and look at what we're paying them before we start with the incentives. I do believe in incentives, but sometimes we need to incentivize the teachers that are willing to go into our at-risk and failing schools and try to put the best in those situations and see how they do in helping kids achieve, because every child deserves a chance and an opportunity, and I believe every child can learn. But if you don't put the right person in that place, they won't have the opportunity. And so those are the times that I think we need to really pay attention to incentives, and actually that's going to be happening in Charleston. We have this incredible entity, Charleston Promise Neighborhood, and it's based on the Harlem Children's Zone that Jeffrey Canada developed. We're working on children from cradle to career, which includes their parents. It can't be done in a vacuum. We can't only develop the child, we have to hope that we develop the parents along the way. And actually, we're doing that within our entire region right now. We're trying to align everyone in our region around cradle to career, and we're actually right now creating basically the benchmarks, the measurements that we're going to have along the way. We have to be able to measure what we want to achieve and then get all of our nonprofit groups that are dealing with education to work together.
So how do you break down the resistance of the nonprofits or the government agencies, for that matter, that don't want to give up some of the leverage that they have by being kind of siloed?
Well, we're working on that right now, okay? But the neat thing, Charleston Promise Neighborhood is a public-private partnership. We have our school district investing in it. We have Charleston County investing. We have the City of Charleston and the City of North Charleston as the public piece of the investment. And then we have private donors investing in the other piece in this cradle to career with 4 of our highest poverty elementary schools. We've got to find a way to break that cycle of poverty with those children and also show them and expose them to the world. We're creating a college-bound culture for them. We have to change the thinking. And not only do we need to change it in the school, we need to change it in their homes. We have to get people to think bigger, including the parents, and have high expectations. But, you know, they may be scared because as parents they don't have the exposure. So we're working on it right now, and teacher incentives is one piece of it. But we're doing that now as a region, not just the Charleston Promise Neighborhood. Our Trident United Way in our region is really facilitating discussion around aligning everyone around education. We have to start at the lowest level. We've got to start with healthy children. They need to be born healthy, and they need to be healthy when they get to kindergarten or preschool, really before kindergarten. And then they need to come out of preschool and go into first grade ready to learn. And if they're not reading by 3rd grade, we will have failed our children. You know?
You know, this is just a small part of that, but I think about when you talk about the schools that are at risk in some of the higher risk neighborhoods, the schools that have the greatest need, and a school like in Charleston will take a high-performing teacher from let's call it a safe neighborhood. That's not a fair assessment, but I think you understand. You take that teacher and you put him in the at-risk school, and sometimes a lot of times the parent in that other one says, wait a minute, we had a teacher that was helping our children, now we have to pay. How do you balance that? What's equitable about that?
Well, one of the things that's happening is the incentives are not going to come from the school district. They're going to have to be raised through the community. So one of the impacts that what's happened at the state level and at the local level, even at the federal level, has had is that we have to go out and bring in more private dollars to support education. And that's a tough thing to hear, but we need to do it. And so there will be private help to make these things happen. And hopefully it will make a difference. And sometimes the teacher that you bring in from that safe school can't perform well because that teacher may not understand how to work with someone who's lived in poverty all of their life. So again, it's about the professional development, the training. I do have a very close friend who has moved from a safe school into a school that's in poverty. And she's done phenomenally, but that's because she learned what it takes to work with children in poverty and how to break the cycle, and she's doing it. And I'm watching her, and it's fun to see that. So there can be success, but again, it's all about the training. It's all about the nature of the people because they have to believe in the children.
Do you get a sense that that is infectious enough for the parents to take another look at the involvement that they need to have with their kids?
I hope so. I think so. Parents have to gain trust. So whoever you do bring into these schools, whether they're outside groups like Charleston Promise Neighborhood or just new teachers, the parents have to gain the trust of those individuals. And so we have to find a way to make sure we're building the opportunity for those parents to gain the trust, because it's going to take that to break some of these barriers.
One more, we got to move on to some other things, but you know, the whole education piece, Anita, is you know, and I just found this out before the lights came up on this broadcast, so I want to bring it up. And I'm surprised, you know, the dream team in South Carolina for education would be Anita Zucker and Darla Moore, and you've never met Darla Moore.
No, I haven't.
That I'm sorry to say this way, but it's mind-boggling to me that you two have never met that way. And with the resources, and Anita, I am not talking about writing big checks, but I'm talking about the influence, the passion that you both have around education. It's never happened.
No, but it will happen. It will happen soon, and both of us have made attempts. So it will happen. And I do think she and I see things eye to eye when it comes to improving the state of South Carolina, and we must do it. Yeah. We must. You know, I don't ever stop. That's the one thing I can say about myself. I'm not willing to give up. I'm not. Our children are our greatest resource, and they're our future. You know, we're aging. It's an aging population. We've got to replace many people that are out working in all of our industries today, whether it's in the health field or in our classrooms. We have to make certain that we are going to grow the future leaders, and we have to work really hard at that, because they're going to have to take care of you and me one day.
We're going to talk about the industry side here in just a second. Next week on our program, he is the transportation boss in the Tar Heel State. North Carolina Secretary of Transportation, Gene Conti, will be here. Been in the job now 2 years, has high marks. We'll find out what he is going to do with a very limited budget and a very maximum demand for transportation and infrastructure. And talk about infrastructure. In Charleston, you've got Jim Newsom, new CEO down at the Ports Authority. Seems like he's getting high marks, and Jim's been on this program and talked very excitedly about what's going on. And here you have, of course, InterTech has been in North Charleston for years, Anita, but one of your subsidiaries now, TIG, thank you, is doing what seems to be right at the center of the bullseye of what Boeing does, and that is the aerospace business. This has to be good news. Has to be good news for not just the fortunes of InterTech, but what do you think will happen to that cluster in Charleston? When we look back in 15 or 20 years, will it be huge?
It will. It will be huge, because not only do we have Boeing, do we have our plant coming, we have others coming, and we have Clemson's work coming right now with the wind energy. And so amazing things are happening around energy and composites and, you know, new materials that are going to be worked. We're already in the business. Boeing is a customer of ours, so I can talk about Boeing. We make products for all of their commercial airliners. So for TIG Hitco, we're coming. It's great to be in the atmosphere where Boeing exists, but we're not coming because of Boeing. We're coming because we have business. And we needed to expand. We needed to have further capacity in this business, and we serve a lot of different companies. Sikorsky's actually my biggest customer in that field. And so we need to be there. We need to be in Charleston with all of the things happening. We do a lot of work already in rotors, gears, and blades. We play in the composite world as well. We make insulating products, and I think we're a good fit for our market. And because of having Boeing serving as the catalyst, everything we're doing around workforce has changed in our state, and it's really beginning to focus on those STEM careers that will benefit us so that we can hire the workforce that we're going to need when we hope to open in September of 2012.
So how can some of this momentum become derailed? Where is the momentum that seems to be building? Where is that most vulnerable?
I would say if we can't provide the workforce that's necessary, then that would create vulnerability for everyone. So we have hard work ahead of us. The good news, all of our universities are really beginning to collaborate with each other, and I'm thrilled because resources are short. We don't have a lot of resources, so right now it's really important that all of our universities and colleges that have the ability to work in these fields work together. And it's happening. It's happening at the technical college level. That's where a lot of the preparation is taking place through something in Charleston and in the state, Ready SC, provided through Commerce. It's great. They're training the workforce. I've been through the facilities at Trident Tech. I actually serve on Trident Tech's governing board, so I'm watching that institution. We're thriving. We are thriving, and we are preparing the workforce for great things. The other place that we can be vulnerable is if we stop access to education. And you see that can happen at the government level because we have to worry right now about Pell Grants. And we want to make certain that lottery tuition assistance continues for our technical colleges.
Is that at risk?
I think the lottery tuition assistance, as long as people are playing and there's still money, hopefully our state's beginning to realize how critically important that is for helping education be affordable. Our technical colleges do a great job, and they're affordable. And they're accredited by the same accrediting bodies that accredit the four-year institutions. So that's really important in my view. Also, the Pell Grants, because that's all of our colleges, 2-year and 4-year. Right now, I think that final decision on what happens with Pell is going to come through the super committee at the federal level. And I worry about that because that could impact our young people's access to education, and we need to make certain that the education that they need is accessible. So.
Anita, do you think Nikki Haley, I know she politically understands the cost of education, but do you think she intellectually supports the growth of education?
Well, I think she realizes that it's necessary. You know, does she support it monetarily in investing? I'm not sure. Because I've just watched what's happened at our state level, and we don't take certain federal dollars that have been offered, and I don't understand that sometimes. I have spoken with McZace about it, and you know, he's explained his reasons, and he has very strong reasons, but at the same time, we're missing out, and we're going to lose out to other places that will get those dollars.
Is that a real risk for South Carolina to fall behind other North Carolina or Georgia or Virginia or Florida?
It is. I mean, we already have the risk with Georgia Tech being in Savannah, offering all the way to PhDs in engineering. So, oh, sure, we're at risk. The good news is everyone is trying to step up as quickly as they can at our university levels to make things happen. We've got to have more engineering at the graduate level in Charleston in order to grow the businesses that we're growing. Otherwise, recruiting is going to have to take place out of state. And we want to build the talent pool within our state. I personally want to see people in our state have opportunities. And if we have the education there for them, and we have the opportunity with Pell and lottery tuition assistance, then we make it accessible. We need our people to be trained. We need to break these poverty cycles, and we need to make certain we can train the people that are living there in those ways and help them to overcome these issues so that they can become successful citizens in our state. That's critical.
And you know the DNA of Trident Tech, and you know how the South Carolina technical system works. With all of the goodwill and with all of the excitement and the wonderful activity going on, how do you keep that momentum going even when Trident Tech feels the pressure of cuts that come out of Columbia? How do they do that? And we have about 2 minutes.
We have a visionary, first of all, that's leading that school, and Dr. Mary Thornley. She's a phenomenal president. She does a lot of planning. She plans incredibly carefully, watches every bit of revenue, finds creative ways to bring revenue in so that we're not fully dependent on the state. We're building a new nursing school. We went to the counties. We support 3 counties. The 3 counties are paying for our nursing school. So you have to be creative and have leaders that are creative and willing to do whatever it takes, and she is that kind of leader. And she understands we have to work with K through 12 too to make certain that students that are coming to the technical colleges are going to be ready to learn and ready to enter college, and we have to do that for the 4-year colleges as well. So she understands the continuum and what's necessary so that we at the technical college and the 4-year college level can be successful. A lot of remediation is going on right now. We're spending over $54 million a year in remediating students at the technical college level just to make them ready to learn. Okay? And we have to be able to have that stop.
Now, finally, in the last couple of seconds, how do you balance your passion for being a Gator and backing Carolina and Columbia? How do you do that?
It's tough. It's really tough. However, right now, with the situation, if you look at how Florida's playing, it's easy to back Carolina. And Steve Spurrier, I used to see him play. My sister and my brother-in-law and my late husband, we were all Florida Gators, and they were there at the time Steve was playing, and so I used to go down and see him. And so I guess that's one of the reasons I can support Carolina, because I think he's
That'll
really
work.
done a great job.
That'll work. Anita, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Good night, all.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte, enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's responsible for rising healthcare costs. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health is a not-for-profit group of hospitals and medical clinics caring for surrounding communities. Their nurses, physicians, and staff are nationally recognized for their remarkable devotion to patient care. And by Sonoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.